There are many people wondering if this is the swan song for Dabo Swinney at Clemson after a 7-6 season. After seeing Clemson not really be Clemson over the last 4 or 5 years, after being maybe the most dominant program in college football for a good stretch of the previous decade, along with Alabama right there, and we saw some national championship games between those programs. Clemson just hasn't been right. And today we're going to dive into their 2026 season and what the outlook is. It is May the 11th. You're listening to the You Think You Know Sports podcast. This is episode number 4. I hope that you'll hit the subscribe button. Hope you'll follow me on the other social media outlets out there. It's You Think You Know Sports on all of them. We have over 10,000 followers on TikTok. So, look, the Clemson situation is very intriguing because all eyes are going to be on Dabo Swinney. We know that from the jump that everybody is going to be paying attention to what this Clemson team looks like out the gate. They play LSU in the other Death Valley to begin the year on September 5th. That game was going to have eyeballs on it no matter what because of Lane Kiffin coaching his first home game for LSU after such a tumultuous situation with Ole Miss last year when they were in the playoff. But then you add in the Clemson factor. And we thought that this was going to be a huge game last year between two top 5 teams early in the year. Obviously, it was a little bit overshadowed by Ohio State and Texas. But ultimately, neither Clemson or LSU were that great. Brian Kelly's not there anymore. But everybody is going to be paying attention right out the gate. Then Georgia Southern, then you play North Carolina in week 3 of Bill Belichick. So there's going to be plenty of eyeballs on this Clemson team early. They also play Miami early. We're going to get to the schedule a little bit deeper a little bit later on. But if things go awry in the early games, that magnifying glass is going to be like James Franklin's last year at Penn State, which I think is completely unfair. Clemson has only really been a powerhouse under Dabo. Remember Clemsoning before Dabo? The phrase that everybody used when Clemson got off to a good start and then would fold in big games, right? And when they first started winning, Dabo had to put that phrase to rest. He said, let's stop talking about it, And they proved that it was no longer a thing. But Clemson lost 9 conference games between 2012 and 2022. They've lost 9 in the last 3 years, okay? But Dabo's 187-53 at Clemson. Listen, I don't care if you're a Clemson fan or a Florida fan or a Notre Dame fan, Miami fan, whoever you are listening to this right now, you would trade your last 15 years for what Clemson has accomplished. The only team that probably wouldn't, obviously, is Alabama and maybe Georgia, right? So Dabo's got a lot of questions to answer as they get into this season. And if things go awry, we'll see what happens. If this could be a parting of ways mutually, all things eventually come to an end, right? All good things. I certainly do not believe that Dabo Swinney has forgotten how to coach. I certainly don't believe that they're going to go bring in a better coach than Dabo Swinney. But again, these are things that we can talk about further on if we see things go in the wrong direction there at Clemson. The quarterback situation is intriguing. So you've got Christopher Vicina, who is the returning guy. Obviously, Cade Klubnik was the starter last year. Vicina got a little bit of playing time. He threw 71 passes. He was 45 of 71, 406 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. And he's competing with Tate Reynolds, who is a highly sought-after freshman quarterback who only played in 2 games his senior year of high school due to injuries. You've got Chad Morris back at offensive coordinator too, back from the glory days from Clemson. And you got to wonder if he's going to be able to revitalize this Clemson offense and get it going like the old days. A lot has changed in college football since then, but we'll see if he's able to get it going. Now, Vicina feels like he's going to be the starter for the game against LSU, right? I mean, it is hard to imagine a situation where Dabo Swinney decides that he is going to go with the freshman Reynolds to go into LSU in the opener and play at LSU. That, to me, look, talent is talent, but typically we see coaches go on the the safe side in that situation, it seems like Vecina would be a little bit more ready for that moment. Again, who knows, right? The offense has got some playmakers back, right? TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco are back at wide receiver. Those guys caught a combined 83 passes last year from Cade Klubnik. So that is, you got some weapons. You have some weapons. And you're also bringing in Chris Johnson Jr., who's not related to the former NFL running back, the speedster for the Titans, not related. But he comes over from SMU. He ran for 479 yards last year and 4 touchdowns. Clemson fans probably remember Johnson. He had 59 yards rushing and 40 receiving yards against the Tigers. He also scored a touchdown in the Clemson SMU game last year. Listen, at tight end, they've got Olsen Pat Henry back, as well, which is big. And then they've got a couple of offensive linemen and Sadler and Sewell back on, for the Tigers on this O-line as they try to protect whoever's going to play quarterback. Defensively, they only have 3 players back. Will Helt is back at linebacker, Sammy Brown. They've got Ashton Hampton back in the secondary. But they have brought in other guys. Jerome Carter is coming over from Old Dominion. He was a safety. He had 37 tackles and 6 interceptions last year. In the Cure Bowl, he had 2 interceptions against South Florida. Corey Myrick comes over from Southern Miss. And then Donovan Sarr is coming in from Auburn. So there are some reinforcements coming in for this Clemson team. And, the one thing I keep hearing, is Dabo went out and actually tried to get guys in the transfer portal. At first, while everybody was going deep in the portal, Dabo was like, hey, you guys are zigging. We're going to zag. We're going to do something different here. And maybe that's part of the reason. That's what most people, most analysts, most fans point to, is they haven't done good enough in the portal. But what I will tell you is Clemson had 9 guys who were drafted in the NFL draft. Okay? That was among the highest numbers for any college. 9. So it's clear that the NFL believes the talent's still there, right? It's clear that there is talent on the roster like there was when Clemson was winning big. Maybe not first rounders all over the place, okay? But Clemson had NFL talent on this roster, and for whatever reason, they didn't get it done last year. They were 71st in points per game, averaged about 25, 26 points per game. That's 65th. That's dead middle in the country, basically. They only ran the ball in 45% of their plays, okay? 114th in that category. Clemson has got to get back to being able to run the football and be balanced when they are playing other conference opponents that have size on the inside. Clemson's got to be able to move the line of scrimmage. Defensively, teams just said, hey, we're not going to run it at Clemson. We can't. 43% of opponents' plays were run plays, which means they threw it a ton, right? Second most passing attempts is what Clemson saw last year. Second fewest rushing attempts in percentage, which is crazy. Again, 11 starters are gone. 9 that went on to the NFL, and then 2 others. They are 4-8 in their last 12 games against the SEC. As we get back to the schedule here, we've already talked a little bit about that LSU opener, where there are going to be so many eyeballs on that game. It is going to be gigantic. I cannot wait. We will see what Clemson looks like. Then Georgia Southern, then North Carolina. We got through those 3 games. They play at California on a Friday night on September the 25th, okay? So 5 of their first 7 are at home, but the 2 road trips are to LSU and to Cal, which is about as far as Clemson could possibly play, okay? And what I don't love that. I think they could theoretically lose both of those games, which would put them 2-2 if they beat North Carolina and get through Georgia Southern. They then play Miami, okay? And that game is at Clemson. So at least you get the best team on paper, we think, in the ACC in Miami coming to your place. And you also get an extra day because, again, the California game is September 25th on a Friday. The Miami game follows it on a Saturday. So Clemson gets an extra day to prepare for Darian Mensah and Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes. Guys, if you love this podcast, we'll be doing Miami very soon. We've already done California. Have not gotten to North Carolina yet. We're going in ABC order. Then they play Charleston Southern at home and Virginia Tech at home. So that ends your first 7. So again, road games at LSU and Cal. You have home games against Georgia Southern, North Carolina, Miami, Charleston Southern, and Virginia Tech. So Clemson from October 3rd until Halloween doesn't play on the road. So their Halloween game is at Florida State in Tallahassee. Then they go to Syracuse, who I think is going to be improved this year. That game is on a Friday night, November the 6th. If you're a Clemson fan, you remember Steve Angeli getting hurt in the game last year. Syracuse beat Clemson last year. That Syracuse team had no quarterbacks left, man. Angeli throws it all over the field. I love it. He's not afraid to air it out. I haven't gotten to Syracuse yet, but I think Syracuse could be much, much improved over what they were last year. I mean, they literally did not have anybody to play quarterback after Angeli got hurt. And Syracuse beat Clemson last year at Clemson. Clemson then hosts Georgia Tech. That was a really good game last year. Georgia Tech pulled the upset in Atlanta. They go to Duke. We've already done a podcast on Duke. And then they host South Carolina to end the year. So once you get through those first 7, they play 3 of their first 5 on the road. Okay? Florida State, Syracuse, and Duke. Obviously, fans are going to look at the Miami game and say that is the game of the year. Miami, Clemson, October 3rd. I think if you're a Clemson fan, or you're just an ACC football fan or a college football fan in general, the question is, what will Clemson's record be when they get to the Miami game? Will it be enough for it to matter? Will it be good enough? Because, listen, the whole season could shift if you beat LSU. I mean, imagine how different the expectations are for Clemson if they walk into Lane Kiffin's house in the opener September 5th and win that game, right? Then you play Georgia Southern. You're going to be probably heavily favored then against North Carolina in week 3. That trip to California is scary. I mean, you only have 6 days to prepare. It's all the way across the country. They've got a really good quarterback. JKS is back. They've got receivers on the perimeter that are probably going to really challenge whoever they play. Again, I think Clemson would probably be expected to win that game, and then they play Miami. Could they be 4-0 playing Miami? Or are they going to be 2-2, right? Could they even be worse than that? I think a lot of things are on the table for Clemson. Charleston Southern is a game you should win. I mean, you got 2 games. I'm not trying to discredit Georgia Southern. I'm not trying to discredit Charleston Southern. Dabo's got to win those games, right? So you say you win those 2. How many of the other, 5 can you win in the first 7? Virginia Tech feels like one. With James Franklin in year 1, that can be dangerous. We'll see what happens there. Georgia Tech, I don't think is going to be as good as you get later in the year. We're going to get to Florida State very soon on a podcast and talk about them. But I think there's a lot for Mike Norvell to get right before Florida State is back in any kind of national discussion. So, look, I think this is as interesting and as intriguing as any season that I can remember in a long time for any coach, right? I mean, we never thought, and I keep going back to James Franklin, we never thought he would have been fired last year when he was, right? Didn't think that was coming. But you got to wonder with Dabo, and I don't think Dabo's getting fired. I think they would mutually part ways if things just didn't go their way. And again, I don't agree with that. I think Dabo deserves every right to try to turn this thing around. But if Clemson starts out 4-0 and plays Miami tough, we have a completely different conversation than if they're 2-2 and lose to Miami, right? Or 3-1 and lose to Miami in Clemson. So we will see how this goes. I am very interested. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm going to do a TikTok video on this. We're going to post it on YouTube. We're going to be everywhere. This podcast is available everywhere you listen to a podcast. You just search You Think You Know Sports. It'll pull up. It's also on my website, youthinkyouKnowsports.com. So I hope that you will check it out there. There's full analysis on Clemson, a lot more information than what I went through on the podcast there, as well as quick shorts and stuff on the other outlets that I mentioned. I'd love to hear from you on one of those outlets. Reach out. Tell me what you think about Clemson, man. Tell me if you think Clemson is going to be a contender in the ACC or if they're going to be just a little bit mediocre based on what they have coming back and off last season. Can't wait to hear from you. You're listening to You Think You Know Sports podcast. Hope you listen to the next episode here soon. Should be on Florida State. See you there.